our Phil Liffoff has been following this for us. Didn't know we were going to get a verdict so soon, Phil. We've also got Jay O'Brien, who's here with me at the RNC, and our legal beagle Brian Buckmeyer, who's been tracking the trial as well. Phil, let's start with you since you've been monitoring this for us. You got word to us that we were about to get a verdict. Just bring us up to date on what we know. I heard part of that press conference. There was a little bit of an audio issue. So just, if you don't mind, wrap what was said by all three and where we stand at this point.
No, of course. I was able to hear all of it here in the studio. It was quick, as you mentioned, and twice reporters asked, "Are you going to seek the maximum sentence?" And no one answered that question. But the gist of it was they were happy. This is what they laid out in the indictment. They laid out in the charges, and they're happy with the verdict. 13 hours of deliberation over 3 days, and it's not just that. This is the senior senator from New Jersey. I've been covering him for 15 years now, but he's a Democrat powerhouse. And he was charged and now convicted of taking bribes in the form of gold bars, wads of cash stuck in his apartment, luxury automobile, for taking bribes on behalf of the governments of Egypt and Qatar and 3 New Jersey businessmen. At one point, he pointed the finger at his wife over the taking of a Mercedes. And at one point, Kira, he said, as an excuse for having these gold bars and hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash, that this is sort of the way he grew up, because he grew up in a Cuban family, and years ago in Cuba, this is the way, you know, people did it because they didn't trust the government. This is a huge fall from grace. He is now the first American to be convicted of being a public figure who acted as an agent of a foreign government, namely Egypt. This is a big deal, a huge fall from grace. He will be sentenced October 29th and could get decades in jail because of it.
Yeah, I think the Cubans would take issue with Bob Menendez trying to throw his culture under the bus there for how he operates as a senator, an elected official, found guilty now on these corruption charges. So, Jay, just real quickly, because the news, the reaction is coming forward now. We've got Majority Leader Chuck Schumer calling on Menendez to resign. Are you hearing from anybody else? And what do you think will happen now politically for the senator?
Yeah, that's correct. So Chuck Schumer, who has not called on Menendez to resign until this verdict today, said that he should, quote, do what is right for his constituents, the Senate, and our country, and resign. When Menendez was accused and now convicted of conducting this activity, he was the chair of the powerful Senate Foreign Relations Committee. After this indictment came out, he stepped down from that post, but he is still in the United States Senate even right now. He's actually running for re-election. His seat is up in November. He's running as an independent. He just said he did not seek the Democratic nomination here. There's a Republican candidate as well, a hotel businessman, and then there is Congressman Andy Kim, who was running as the Democratic candidate here. Menendez filed as an independent. It's unclear how serious that campaign is. There were some questions as to whether or not that campaign was being kept alive in order to pay for Menendez's defense. We're waiting to hear from, I just got it. I got a statement here from Congressman Andy Kim while I'm sitting with you here on the air. He's, again, the Democrat who's running to replace Bob Menendez in the New Jersey Senate. He said, quote, "This is a sad and somber day for New Jersey and our country. Our public servants should work for the people. And today we saw the people judge Senator Menendez as guilty and unfit to serve." That is, again, from Andy Kim, who is the Democrat running to replace Bob Menendez in the Senate. Worth pointing out here, Menendez, as of right now, has not resigned, and he's also seeking re-election. But obviously this is fast developing, and we'll see what happens towards the end of the day.
Jay, you mean Andy Kim didn't say this is a sad day in American politics, but a great day for me? I mean, this opens the door for Andy Kim in a big way, right?
Well, there's that consideration, too. He's obviously already the Democratic nominee. But also there's a consideration that I've heard concerns from some New Jersey Democrats express, which is that if Menendez is convicted, there may be a ripple effect on Democrats in the party. And they said if, because they were expressing these concerns prior to the conviction today, in that if this longtime Democratic senator from this state is convicted of doing illegal acts while the senator of that state, does that, in a sense, paint a negative picture of Democrats there and make that relatively safe Democratic Senate seat more competitive. We're not certain how that will shake out, but I can tell you it is something that a worry that Democrats expressed to me months ago when this case was still going through the court system.
So Brian Buckmeyer, it looks like he will be sentenced, Bob Menendez, October 29th. And the charges that he's been convicted of carry the possibility of decades in prison. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so from now until October 29th, his defense, as well as the prosecutor and the Department of Probation, are going to evaluate Bob Menendez in a way that creates a point system. And based on those points, he's going to have a sentencing guideline. And what I mean by guideline, it'll be a range. I can't give you the exact number because I don't know where the points may lie. I know that he hasn't admitted guilt, so he'll get additional points for that. This is a first-time conviction. I know he's had a mistrial in the past, so he'll get points for having a clear record. But as that guideline is formed, both the prosecution and the defense will have the ability to argue aggravating and mitigating circumstances, and that's where we're going to get a range. I know you're saying decades. I think it's somewhere 20 to 30 years. But for a case like this, with someone with his background, as bad as it may be, there's also some good there. So it's going to be interesting to see where that range ends up. But of course, there's also going to be some negotiating on the side, and that could influence how long he spends in prison.
And now, Phil, it looks like the New Jersey governor is just put out a statement here asking for Bob Menendez to resign. You're there in New York. What's the buzz? Do you think this is just going to continue to be a domino effect? And by the way, Phil, is it right that we're thinking that maybe Bob Menendez might step up to the mic and talk?
Well, he has been during this trial. Now that he's convicted of all these counts, not sure that he will, but we have eyes on that podium, and we'll bring it to you if it happens. It won't be the last public official to call for him to resign. He's now convicted, and these are really serious charges. And this is, by the way, 7 years after a mistrial in the first federal bribery prosecution against him. So it makes him another dubious distinction, the only U.S. senator ever to face federal bribery charges twice, and the first convicted of acting as a foreign agent. So I don't know how anybody, Bob Menendez, as Jay points out, is running as an independent, still running, still active, not stepped down. How will this affect it? We'll see. But he has maintained his innocence throughout this entire trial, throughout the entire ordeal. Even when he pointed the finger at his wife, who, by the way, is now going to be tried. And as Brian so aptly pointed out earlier on, she was kind of the conduit to getting to the senator for what you needed him to do. So doesn't look good for her either. But yeah, this is just going to be a dam that bursts with everybody asking him to resign.